Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This time I wanted to talk about potential movesets in Pokken, crafting movesets for different types of Pokemon that aren't currently in the game. Because Pokemon has a lot of diverse characters, and Pokken's one of those games that has just so many varied movesets. I would say it has one of the most diverse movesets in like any current fighting game at the moment. And that always gets me like thinking like, oh, what if this Pokemon was in Pokken? Like how would they play? How unique would they be in comparison to other fighters? And so I thought about the series of mine that I kind of wanted to do, and to start off that series, I want to talk about Tyranitar. It's one of those Pokemon that is just like super popular, and surprisingly we do not have a rock type in Pokemon in Pokken yet. So I think it'd be very cool to have Tyranitar. And I thought of it like a neat little moveset that could come with. Like, I'm not too sure about how like everything would go, but I think I have like a general idea how cool Tyranitar might be. But first off, what kind of Pokemon is Tyranitar? Like I said, it's a popular Pokemon. Some of you probably already know. But if you don't, Tyranitar is the final evolved form of Larvitar, going from Larvitar to Pupitar to Tyranitar. It's a rock dark type from the Johto region, and also the region's pseudo-legendary. So it has titanic stats, like it has very high, it mainly focuses on high offense and defense. It also has a Mega Evolution, and has it used to be its signature ability Sandstorm in Generation 3 when abilities were introduced. Still the main Sandstorm setter in the main series. Other Pokemon have gotten Sandstorm, like Gigalith and Hippowdon, but Tyranitar is still like the one that you know it for. Now if you don't know Tyranitar from the main games, or the competitive side of the main games, maybe you know it from the movies or the other spin-off games. Like, Tyranitar's in the fourth movie as like one of the main antagonists' main Pokemon, destroying everything with Hyper Beams. It's also part of Team ACT and Red Rescue Team. And if you play Coliseum games, which are quite popular, it was the final boss's like last Shadow Pokemon, like his final boss Shadow Pokemon that you had to catch at the very end of the game. Yeah, with all this considered, especially the stats and like how it acts, it's a very ferocious Pokemon, I would say it would be a very tanky Pokemon that can go through lots of attacks through Pokken's Red Armor mechanic. It would use a lot of moves that would grant it Red Armor, and it would have a ton of HP to get through attacks and still have like a good amount of HP to continue fighting on. That would probably mean he wouldn't get like perfects like ever, but like still, it'd be a really unique thing because we don't really have a Pokemon in Pokken that utilizes Red Armor to this extent. So like I said, it would be able to endure lots of hits, take a lot, dish out a lot of damage in return. I guess the example of how this would go, during certain states when you're like minus in Pokken, you usually want to block obviously, or if you want to be a little risky, you would do a counterattack. Tyranitar, he would kind of play a little like, not brain dead, but like you could totally do your Red Armor state to go through those minus situations and take advantage back. And I guess for those who don't know, Red Armor in Pokken, basically, it's like counterattack kinda, where you go through physical attacks except for moves that pierce, but you still take the damage, and you can also go through regular attacks. So it's basically like it's basically like normal hits, except you armored through, but a different type of armor. Like I mentioned, you still take the damage, but you do go through grabs, and that's why it's considered part of the attack part of the attack triangle. Attack, counterattack, and grab. That type of stuff. For his unique mechanic, now many Pokemon in this game have very unique mechanics, and this is always the part that I thought about the most. Like, what could Tyranitar do? What it's most known for? Sandstorm, like I said. Even with other Pokemon getting Sandstorm in the main games, Tyranitar is one of the more premier Pokemon to use it. So my thought about it was, after winning Field Phase, or using a move that I'll mention before next, in Duel Phase, Tyranitar sets up a Sandstorm. Now, the Sandstorm would grant it more Red Armor on some of its moves. My idea is that only like a few moves, like maybe 2 or 3 moves normally in Duel Phase, have Red Armor. But if it gets its Sandstorm up, it gives it many more Red Armor moves, like most of its Pokemon attacks, which I'll get to shortly. Similar to Bad Dreams Rising for Darkrai 2, where if it gets like any like command grab that doesn't shift the phase, so like as an example, if Sceptile Giga drains Darkrai while he's in Bad Dreams Rising, his super mode for those who don't know, he immediately goes out. So it'd be like that too, where if you just do a command grab or any sort of animation that stays in Duel, then yes, it would just exit completely. And as a side thing to help its like HP, since it is going to be using its HP a lot, I thought maybe it could slowly regen its health too a bit. Only its gray health, obviously, which wouldn't be a lot because getting hit from attacks would lower its like the maximum HP. It wouldn't just bring it into gray health, if I recall. Yeah, it would have some gray health, so it could like recover a little bit. Not too much to the point where it'd be like stupidly overpowered if you kept getting the roll going. But hey, he would win the round anyway if he was going to keep the roll going, keep going in a roll. Oh, and then there's Tyranitar. You can barely see Tyranitar here, right here. He's so tiny. But yeah, up next, notable general attacks I want to talk about. This is kind of just like a list because it's much easier to talk about like the Pokemon moves and stuff. But I still think it's more important to know like what kind of stances, what kind of like counterattack he would have, what kind of grabs he would have, and how that like positions him from field to duel or duel to field. So my idea for something like his anti-air, a tail swipe. There's kind of something basic, a tail swipe. It'd be kind of a slow anti-air, but like a good anti-air, like long, like decently long ranged. Might be a little slow, but it's also a really good combo tool for him, I feel, and for air combos. Like, it's that reliable. For his AX, I wasn't too sure how I wanted to handle this because I didn't know if I wanted it to combo or not. He is a power character. A lot of power characters have moves that don't really, like, combo off of their 8X. Like, I guess, for example, Charizard, Machamp, and Blastoise are like that, all power characters. But yeah, like, for my idea, I guess just, like, pick up a rock, because we don't, like I said, we don't really have many rock moves in general, too, either. So I just thought, hey, pick up a rock, jump and throw it back down on the opponent, like, crush them like that. Like, this would always knock the opponent down, even on crits, similar to the ones I mentioned before for Charizard, etc. So I think it would be very, very strong in return for not being able to combo. But you still also get the Oki setup, which is really, really good. In general, I feel like Tyranitar would attack with lots of, like, I guess you can see it right there, headbutts, bites, punches, kicks, tail strikes, and then of course like the ground and rocks and stuff like that, like I mentioned before. I don't want to go through all the normals, mostly because I can't fit everything on the screen, because I need to talk about everything else. For stances, I think it fits this character for both of them to be red armor stances. I'm not too sure about if it actually being on frame 1. I feel like that would be actually kind of stupid now that I think about it, but like maybe like I feel like some stances come out on like frame 5. Maybe that would be good for both of them. Red armor throwing grabs on up stance and then low stance go through lows. I feel like that would be really, really neat. For his counterattack, it would, similar to other power characters, I mentioned this before, some power characters just have moves that don't combo in return for their power. So like I mentioned, similar to the case with 8X. Charizard and Blastoise can't combo off of their counterattacks normally. Usually they would need a wall that's also like a precise hit on the wall. It's not really, it doesn't really happen often to begin with. But I feel like for Tyranitar's case, it wouldn't happen at all. It would do like a huge headbutt, like boom, to attack the opponent. It would be a little slow, but it also means it gets more armor frames. When I originally thought of this, I was like, maybe he should have a counterattack that's a red armor, but I'm like, no, I feel like that'd be too much. That wouldn't make any sense. Also, that would just mean he doesn't have any counterattack. He would just be taking constant damage, and that would make not much sense. Yeah, just like a huge headbutt that like knocks them down, even on crit. Wouldn't do a wall splat either. It'd be similar to Blastoise's 8XX in that case, where even though it looks like they should wall splat, it doesn't wall splat. For his Duel Phase grab, I wanted to keep it simple. And simple, I mean like rushing them down. I thought it'd be cool if he like set up a wall behind the opponent, and then like they go like, oh, and then he just crashes them through the wall. I feel like it would be a really, really badass move he could do. And he'd be right in front of their face for the next mix-up. For his dual grab, it's a bit different. I thought about this one a little bit. I think it'd be cool if you've ever seen like Ruby. Think of like Weiss, where she does her ice thing, where she's like, shh, and then a bunch of ice pillars come out. Think of it like that, but with stone. Like he just stomps his foot down and like pushes them away with a bunch of like pillars of stone going far away. Now you might think this is a bad thing for Tyranitar because normally you want to like keep up the pressure, keep them going, but a lot of dual grabs usually push them far away to begin with, even for some characters like Charizard, Blastoise, Machamp. But yeah, my idea of the pushing them away would be kind of different because it would bring them really far away, but to the point where they're either trapped in the corner if you grab them from around mid stage, you get out of the corner more easily if you grab them from when you're at the corner, or if they're in the corner. My idea was that you would push yourself into the center of the stage. There's certain characters that kind of do that already. I don't think of any at the top of my head, but like if you like put like, I guess you could think of it as like the stone pillars pushing you against, like pushing from the wall that pushes you far away. And so when your opponent wall splats from that, they get launched towards you in the center of the stage. So you're kind of near them already. So I thought that was really neat. It's like something that you would think, oh, that'd be bad for someone who wants to rush down the opponent, but like, it gets to you push them so far away that it actually becomes valuable for you for like a rushdown character, which is kind of funny, I feel. And now I want to get to his Pokemon attacks. Now these attacks, these are going to be a mix of both attacks that he's like known for in the main games, and attacks that I thought would just be neat and very useful for his archetype. For Crunch, I thought it'd be kind of like a... There's a lot of text on the screen. Oh my gosh, I realized how much I got into this. I thought it'd be like a 2-chomp combo. So it'd be like one, which is safe on block, and then the second one. I hope my teeth didn't get heard. Now this second chomp I think could have 2 different timings to it. I think the first one could be very punchable on block, while the other one's a just frame that can pierce the opponent, and it's like safer on block. So it's like I guess you could think of it as like a kind of Rekka for Tyranitar. Now I got really deep into this, so I'm thinking, oh, okay, so the first crunch into the second crunch normally would combo, but like if you do the just frame, then obviously it wouldn't combo from the first to second. Now the just frame version wouldn't be able to be like, oh, I can't do anything, I basically just have to take it. No, you'd be able to definitely like jump out of the way, attack him before it comes out, grab him before it comes out, stuff like that. So it's kind of like a guess, but like if you get the timing of it, or you just like know what the Tyranitar player would be doing, you could definitely like call them out on it. And it's definitely very interesting for someone like Tyranitar who already is risking a lot of HP on what they're doing with the red armor state. So yeah, I think it would just be very cool. And it's, like I said, it's like one of his most used attacks in like any game, which I always find neat. And I always like talking about like certain moves that just like they're known for and trying to put them into Pokken. Because sometimes the awkward moves are the ones that are like, you know, the most unique. So yeah, this basically just makes a mix-up for the opponent, and it's a very risky mix-up for both players, because obviously Tyranitar has a lot of HP, but he's already using that HP to get in with his red armor. So seeing how he would do with a mix-up, like whether he's going to do the just frame or the regular version, and obviously you could do like a combo with it and do crunch and be a plus anyway. Or you could even do something like do one crunch, and then as your opponent gets hit, you do the just frame crunch, and they wouldn't be able to do anything because it's on hit instead of block. Which I found would be like, oh, really cool, because I was thinking, oh, maybe the second hit could be plus. It wouldn't be guaranteed damage, obviously, or it wouldn't do, like, be plus in the way that, like, you get guaranteed damage, but it would still do a decent amount of chip, and it would definitely be able to help him with his mix-ups by being plus in that situation. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about for this move was, what if Tyranitar could cancel the first crunch before the first bite comes out? I thought this would be really cool. Not only does it extend the mix-up game, but Crunch, like all the other Pokemon attack moves I mentioned, would be able to red armor stuff in the Sandstorm. Now, if you could, I would see this as only the first bite that would have red armor, and then it goes away for the rest, so you could punish it as normal if they do the just frame, so they can't just spam that over and over again. But what I thought it'd be really cool if you could use it to like parry attacks. So you do like the crunch, like he's getting ready to crunch, here he comes, and then he just cancel it, goes through the attack. It would be really helpful in situations where you're like up close at the opponent and they're like plus, or if you're trying to get in against a zoner. Obviously, red armor doesn't work for piercing moves, so stuff like Chandelure Beam or Will-O-Wisp would be really, really hard to go like fight up against. And obviously, you'd still take the damage instead if you just blocked it. It would help you get in a lot quicker though, when I can see that as being part of his risk versus reward. And now I thought, okay, for his second move, I thought maybe we'd have a move that helps him out take less damage over time. So I thought, hey, maybe Fire Fang. Burns in Pokken usually mean attack down, and that would be the case for Fire Fang. Like, Sandstorm's already going to be healing Tyranitar, but some damage is already going to be guaranteed. He can't heal all of it. So Fire Fang being able to lower the attack of the opponent would be really, really helpful for that, along with his gigantic HP I keep mentioning. Yeah. Basically, my thought for it would be, he would just set his mouth aflame. It'd be a little, like, Tyranitar's going to have a lot of moves that have a lot of startup, but same here. Not as much as, like, some other moves I'll probably talk about, but, like, he'll still have, like, some startup. My thought was he would go, like, I just realized I gotta, like, try to make people, like, imagine in their brains about this, and I'm just doing stupid motions. Oh my gosh. But yeah, just kind of he, like, bites an arc in front of him. And this could anti-air. It's not a true anti-air. It's like Empoleon's Drill Peck, where it's not an anti-air, but it can anti-air, and it's very useful. I said anti-air so often there. Oh my gosh. It's kind of a simple move, but it's very useful, and he can do it in like air combos to help just get that attack debuff to be safe. Like, you would you would lessen damage that you do to your opponent, because it would scale quite a bit, I feel, to make up for, like, oh yeah, I'm just invincible now, you can't hurt me at all, haha, I'm going to break you. But you know, you'd still do, like, be very useful, and it's a very, like, it could change up the combos. Like, if you think, oh, I want the debuff instead of, like, getting more damage on the opponent. It's not like someone like Sceptile, where some of his optimals already do give a debuff. So it's like, oh, I would just do that combo. No, you would do something different in the long run. You could do different optimals, like, oh, Fire Fang optimal. It'd be another, like, similar to his 8Y I mentioned before, it'd be part of his, like, air combo game moves, main ones. And of course, it would gain red armor and Sandstorm, but I've already mentioned that a million times. You guys could just expect that. You can read, use your brains. Anyway, next up, 6A, Stomping Tantrum. Or 4A, if you want to talk about that. He would think of this like Broly. This is what I think about it, at least. Think of it like Super Broly in Fighters, where he just does 3 stomps for it, I think. It's kind of like that. And it caused a mini trimmer in front of him, too, so it has somewhat of a little bit range. And you could do 2 follow-up stomps. It's 3 stomps. You can't see my feet, but I'm stomping right now. For each stomp on block, I would say it wouldn't be a block string. I'd say it would be a big risk. It'd be similar to the other Rekka I mentioned before, where you could definitely do something in between the hits to counteract Tyranitar. But in this case, you wouldn't be able to attack it due to the timing. You would be able to counterattack or maybe jump it, but you definitely would not be able to attack right through it. So it's a bit riskier in that case, and there's also the extra stomp you have to be aware. Now, for each stomp on block, I would say it would be like, it would go from like -4 to -8 on the second hit, and then being finally punishable on the third hit, which is the riskiest. But you would be like, oh, why would they do that? And then you immediately get hit because you're like, oh, I got hit there. Now, having 2 kind of sort of Rekkas in this case, you'd be like, oh, what? They're so similar. Like, you'd be like, oh, Crunch is similar to Stomping Tantrum. Why would I ever use one over the other when the other one can pierce? Even though it's like 1 extra hit on Stomping Tantrum. But for this, I thought, oh, okay, like the main games, if you fail a move before you use Stomping Tantrum, it gets more powerful. So my idea was, on whiff, what if the second stomp gets more powerful? And if you whiff the second stomp, it would get even more powerful, including the range. I would say the range would also get bigger, with the last one being around probably like halfway across full screen. I would also say the last one probably also would pierce, because it's just like, if you whiff 2 and your opponent is still on the ground like that, you kind of deserve to get it. You could do it for like an Oki option too, which would be really neat. You definitely remain safe on the last one. Definitely be only like, probably like, I'm not sure if I would want to make it plus or even. Maybe even would be fine, because Tyranitar in my mind wouldn't have an I-11 move. But yeah, when I mean whiff, I don't mean on block either. If it hits the block, it's still going to be level 1 stomps throughout the entire thing. I mean like on actual, well, like I said, on actual whiff. So your opponent's here. Oh, I stomped because I'm stupid and I didn't do anything right. Boom. Oh, my opponent got hit because he reached now. Haha, got him. GG's. Second one will also be slightly -2. It definitely would not be safe like the third one in my head. Imagine I'm just being high. I whiffed 1 move and now I am +8. And as a part of this, if you land the second stomp after whiffing the first, the third one would just go back to normal. So it'd be like, you're not going to be like, oh, I get 2 level 2 stomps. No, it would just go back to normal. But if you did whiff like once, if you hit the first stomp and then somehow whiff the second, which I don't know how you would do that, but then your opponent goes, oh, okay, I'm going to press a button now, and then you hit them with the third stomp, it would technically only be like level 2. It wouldn't be level 3. Now, I've been talking about this like everything's in Duel Phase. I haven't talked about, oh, what if it's in Field Phase? For Stomping Tantrum in Field Phase, I feel like in general, it would just gain more horizontal. So like it'd be like a wave, like for each whiff as it gets like bigger and bigger. I don't know how big, like how wide it would get for like level 3, but I do say it would be fair to like widen it so it's not just like a linear path for what you do with it. I guess you could think of it as like sort of like a projectile in that case, like an added projectile you can use. Oh, and I guess I didn't mention it before, but yeah, this definitely would phase shift along with the other 2 moves I mentioned. I was like, can I just mention how happy that Whiscash is? Oh my god. I forget how small he is too. Now for one of the more unique moves I thought about, I was thinking this in like, I thought of all this like in my bed during the nighttime when I was just like, what could be in Pokken? And I'm like, oh, this would be sick. Like, I literally had my phone on freaking Tyranitar's, like, moveset page. I'm like, brain. Now, Pursuit. Pursuit is probably one of his most well-known moves in the competitive side of Pokemon. He was, like, the premier Pursuit trapper for, like, a lot of Psychic and Ghost-type Pokemon. Now, my idea for Pursuit is that it's a move that gets powered up depending on the situation. For Tyranitar, this would mean, okay, if the opponent does absolutely nothing that meets those requirements for level 2, it would just be a normal punch forward. This wouldn't be punishable. It would be like Decidueye's Sucker Punch, in that it would be very minus if it doesn't meet the requirements, but it definitely would not be unsafe. However, my idea, and this is why I felt very smart when I came up with this, is if the opponent holds back, they would meet those requirements. It'd be like in the main games where if the opponent tries to retreat, Pursuit gets powered up. Pursuit would then do, I think, in my mind, I would imagine Tyranitar punching the ground and dark energy comes out. Because we don't have that dark element to yet. The dark type Pokemon, I feel like we definitely need some dark element into this too. So like a bunch of dark energy coming on the ground. The range would be pretty decent because if the opponent could just hold back the entire time and just like dodge it. Not full screen, obviously, because then you'd be like, hi, I got this full screen piercing projectile. Have fun. if you held back for even a second, have fun. There would be a bit of wind up to it though. So your opponent can hit you out of it unless you have the red armor. Yeah, so decent range all around. It would pierce, like I mentioned. It would, and in the end, it would put them in the crumple state. This crumple state definitely would have a decent amount of scaling to it. Not too much where it'd be entirely pointless to even try to attempt to land it. Like, you'd be like, oh, I didn't even get 200 damage. Wow, that's a great move. Good job, Jukem. You came up with a great idea. No, but I feel like in that case, it would do a decent amount. You'd probably get around like 250 off of it. But the reason I say that is because if you did hit it back, if you did hit them while they were moving back like that, and it gets powered up, it would definitely do a bunch of damage raw on its own. Like, probably like, I don't know, thinking about like 160 by itself. When you hit an airborne opponent, they just get launched upward, and you can do an air combo off of it. So you could do something like, if they jump back, it gets powered up. Oh, okay. Pursuit! Ah! Think of freaking like Power Wave. Power... Was it like Power Geyser? Power Geyser! You get Tyranitar just 3 punches to the ground. Like, oh, well, I'm screwed. Have fun with this giant wall. No, but like, then they would just be launched through the air, and you could do something like Fire Fang to like lower their attack. That would be so much scaling, but that would definitely be something you could do. I thought this is a way for Tyranitar to keep up his pressure against the opponent while they're trying to move away, because if he's rushed down. So you want to get away from your rush down. So it's like, oh, if I'm holding back, well, guess I'll die. But this doesn't mean the move is like unbeatable. Definitely, if you move forward, it doesn't get powered up at all. And even if you were to like move back a bit and then jump forward, and you're like right in front of him, you still would be able to get it like behind him before the move comes out. Because I mentioned this before, it's still a little bit slow. Or you can attack him out of it if you're brave enough. Unless red armor, obviously. And then you're like, oh, cool, I'm even more dead. And because of these ways, I thought, like, okay, so it would just be like the slightest hold back. If you hold back, it's just going to get powered up. Not if you're, like, obviously blocking, but if you just move back. I guess that's the idea behind it. If you move back. Not if you're like, oh, I accidentally held back while blocking. Now it's just powered up for no reason. Not like that. It wouldn't detect it, like, on the control stick. It would just detect the character actually moving. Which I'm pretty sure seemed a bit obvious, but I just wanted to put that out there. So it's like, oh, cool. I accidentally held back. Pursuit's powered up. Time to cry. For his next move, another very well-known move is that he has, Hyper Beam. Everyone who's seen the movie, that's from the movie, I'm pretty sure, where it's just like, oh, it's just Hyper Beam. I feel like he's one of the anime Pokemon that just use Hyper Beam the most. It would be similar to actually Mewtwo's Hyper Beam, except like I thought, okay, maybe an anti-air version. It'd be slower. It's slow like Hyper Beam, maybe a tiny bit faster, so you can maybe be like, oh, I can actually land it. But it would be a giant piercing beam that you can land. And unlike other beam moves, like Blastoise's Tiger Pump or Suicune's Aurora Beam, you wouldn't be able to do something like, okay, so I'm right in front of them, but because I'm not in the air, I don't get hit. No, I feel like there would be a small hurt box right in front of him, so it's not just like, oh, cool, they jumped in front of me, landed, and then dodged it because they landed right in front of me. No, you'd still be able to do that. The beam would be able to pierce, and it would do a ton of damage, instantly phase shifting the opponent. In Field Phase, I thought, okay, you could also angle the beam too. I think you can do that with Hyper Beam for Mewtwo. Yeah, I think you can. I think also with Aurora Beam and Ice Beam for Empoleon. Yeah, just like a big destructive tool that you can use to like get your opponent even when they're far away. Not one that you can use when like if it had Mewtwo's Hyper Beam, I feel like that would be kind of a little busted just because it'd be like, oh, I'm rushed now, but I don't mind. Here's my giant beam. But this would only be if they're in the air. Definitely used for like big callouts if you see them, or if they're just staying in the air and you see them staying there. Like if you see someone like Charizard doing it, you would be able to. I don't have this written down, but I think maybe being able to cancel it too would be neat. But I feel like Trunch already kind of does that. I feel like this is a move definitely. If you were to use it, you would definitely have to commit to it. The only reason I thought of that is because Mewtwo can cancel his, but he can also just use Teleport out of it, so it's kind of different in that regard instead of just like standing there. But yeah, just a giant from his mouth that hit airborne opponents. Hard to land, but very, very worth it if you can do it. If you're full screen too, they wouldn't be able to punish it unless it's like they're very like, oh, okay, I just realized it. Unless they're like Sceptile, where it's just like, oh, I could dash in and just hit you anyway. But like most characters probably wouldn't be able to. No, never mind. I feel like they would definitely be able to punish most of them, because a lot of them would be zoners and be like, okay, I'll just hit you anyway. Definitely effective against characters who like jumping a lot, or like staying in the air a lot. I feel like the red armor for Hyper Beam in this case, when Sandstorm is up, would be really useful against opponents who try to jump in and hit you, in just like different ways. It probably would have like an anti-air property like Aurora Beam. I'm not too sure if it would be you'd be able to hit it with air moves similar to his other similar to Fire Fang. But either way, it would just help in that case if they like land right in front of you and attack you, or if they try to hit you with an air move. In that case, it would just be very, very helpful to take a hit just so you can deal so much damage in return. Oh, and also it definitely would not be able to hit like shorter characters. I mentioned it being able to hit people in front of you only for like taller characters. Someone like Pikachu is gonna be able to just like walk through and be like, "Hi, I'm fine, GG's, haha, Pika." Now, second last move I wanted to talk about is JA, Giga Impact. It's another big risky move. Similar to Hyper Beam, Basically, he would be in the air, obviously, and he would just dive down with a bunch of energy. And surrounded by energy. My idea was like in the anime where they're like in a swirl of energy, because I always thought that was cool as a kid. And it would pierce, do a great amount of damage, and I feel it would be able to combo after it too. So my idea is when you land, 2 stones rise up from the ground, because we don't really have a rock type move yet in his moveset too. Like we have Tremor's moving, but we got to get that rock thing too. I'm a big nerd for this stuff, so if it's like unneeded, I totally understand. But it would scale a lot, obviously, if it was going to combo like a ton. Basically, it's kind of like, think of it like Pikachu Libre's JA Spark, where it's just like kind of a DP. It would be like red armor stuff in Sandstorm. I forget if I have it. Oh yeah, he would have red armor at the beginning of it. Not as much, but in Sandstorm, he would gain it throughout the entire thing. That's my idea about it. So it's not completely like, oh, it's slow, blockable, and punishable. And I could just hit him out of it with an anti-air. You still can do that, but if you're too early on the anti-air, then he would just armor through it. So it's basically his way of trying to deal with like anti-air situations if he can get it right. Still unsafe though. So like certain characters who probably have like lingering anti-air, like Sceptile, else 8Y, who could just do it, hit the opponent, and then be like, I'm gonna block it anyway. That's definitely a situation that could totally happen in that case. As I mentioned before, 2 stones would just appear out of the ground, and then you can combo right after it. Very useful for other moves, like Fire Fang to do it. And I forgot to mention this, but you could definitely use Hyper Beam in combos too. So like you could just do like Giga Impact to Hyper Beam, the mother of load of moves that have a lot of like end lag. Oh gosh, imagine seeing that in the anime where it's just like, use Giga Impact, use Hyper Beam, all these moves that are super destructive, but you can't do anything right afterward. Have fun. On air hits, I imagine this wouldn't combo into the stones, just by the way it would work, because I feel like if you get hit down, they would hit the ground before they actually hit the stone. But yeah, I think that would just like more to make up for it, because it would be a very good air-to-air option in that case. In field phase though, it would not shift on the stones. It would actually shift on the main hit, the Giga Impact hit that goes all the way down. And if it does miss the first hit, the stones will still appear. I imagine they go all around him, and it launches the opponent, so you can combo them right afterward. That or shift, those stones also shift, and it doesn't do that much damage. But you could, I imagine either scenario is really cool for him, because it would just be like, oh, I missed the first hit. Good thing these stones are around me, so I could still shift and not be able to be punished. If you were able to combo off of them, it'd still be very useful, because you could land stuff like Hyper Beam or Fire Fang. Or just like your homing attack. I imagine your homing attack too. Yeah, that's the last thing I want to talk about for that move. Now I want to talk about a potential release move for Tyranitar, and it's one I alluded to before, Sandstorm, all the way back there. Sandstorm was an alternative way, I thought, for him to set up the Sandstorm in Duel Phase. Basically, it's just a release move. It would be a very like long charging release move, and I imagine it would have a lot of startup even when you do release it, just so it's not like, oh, I lost a phase, I'm gonna get up to Sandstorm anyway. Because normally it would just be like, oh, I win field phase, Sandstorm's automatically up. It's basically just used for situations where you get a long combo that you don't want to use your A moves in, and you don't mind charging up for a long time, and you get the knockdown. So you're like, okay, now I can start off my real pressure, which is all this red armor I have. It's different from Darkrai's Badger's Rising in that case, where you get to set it up like that more easily, as opposed to needing to land a true confirm in order to get it. So if your opponent's trying to just like wait it out for you in Duel Phase 2, you can set it up that way too. Wouldn't have any red armor to it. It would just be like, oh, if you get hit out of it, oh, I guess you just wasted your release move and left yourself wide open like that. And also on like Bad Dreams Rising, he wouldn't like reset the phase shift points from setting it up either. So that means even if you did land a combo, just because you like set up the Sandstorm, you're not going to get too much off of it. So I feel like it's fair in that case too. So it's either if your opponent lets you, it's like, okay, that's fair. I kind of deserve that for just letting him do that. Or if you do a long combo where you're not even going to finish the combo too, you're just setting up the Sandstorm, which can get more damage in the long run if you're willing to risk that. So I find that very interesting that he could do. I find it very, very interesting how he could set up the Sandstorm in Duel Phase as a like an alternative means of winning the Duel Phase without just without actually winning the Duel Phase. Really, just get a million more damage off of setting it up and then being able to armor through stuff. Now in Field Phase and in a Sand-streamed Duel Phase, I say this move could sort of work like Suicune's Icy Wind, where it's a release move that you shoot out a projectile for. It would still take 5 to 6 seconds. So it wouldn't be like, oh, hi, I'm zoning you with my rushdown character. No, but you would definitely be able to use it to get in a little easier. It'd be a lot of time to charge up. Charge up and shoot out like a little sand tornado, as I see it. And it's definitely wouldn't be able to get powered up like in Suicune's case where it's like, you can't even jump over it. But it would definitely be able to help him get in. I see it as like a slow-moving projectile too. It's like slower than Suicune's. And it would linger too, so it would definitely help him get in a lot quicker than he would if he just like armored through attacks. Because of this though, it's not red armored at all, even in the Sandstorm and Duel Phase. He wouldn't be able to like just spam these to like zone or just spam them to always get in for free. If someone's also shooting a projectile at him, he could get hit and the projectile would just go away. He could also just use it to like protect himself from another projectile attack coming in, which is another unique way you could use it to help get in. Still very slow though. Still has that same startup, I feel, from if you just try to set up the Sandstorm in Duel Phase. But, you know, I feel like it's a projectile in Duel Phase. I feel like he would kind of need it. I feel like it'd be too easy to, like, stop him in Duel Phase. But yeah, extremely helpful move for him to get in. I find it very unique in that case, along with his other special moves. Now I want to talk about his Synergy Burst. Synergy Burst, he would imagine this thing getting rushed down by this behemoth of a Mega Evolution. He would be a 200cc character, similar to characters like, I think, Blastoise. Yeah, Blastoise, Sceptile. I don't remember the others, but he have a, like, I think a pretty good burst mode, I feel. Because instead of having to set up Sandstorm, he would always just have Sandstorm, even in Field Phase, where all his moves have red armor. This would also mean that Sandstorm, the move, would always send out the sand projectile, the sand tornado. That's the main power-up he gains through this burst mode. I'm not too sure what, if any of the moves I mentioned would change while he's in burst mode. I feel like his, like, what is it called? Physiology? Is that the word? I hope I'm using that word right. is still the same. Is still similar to when he's just a normal Tyranitar. So I feel like a lot of those would just be the same. Maybe some of his like normal moves that I like probably have not come up with would change slightly. But yeah, the main draw is just all his moves have red armor on them. Not all of them. All the ones that would gain red armor. So like most of his A moves and certain normals. Now here's the part of the video where I kind of just like brainstorm. Okay, so a burst attack is just not something. A lot of the time it's just like, what would be a cool super move? Like people think in Smash Brothers, oh, what could their final smash be? There's always the startup of the move. And in Smash you don't even use final smashes competitively, so you always gotta think of that too. My idea, Hyper Beam again, but used differently. It'd be a thinner beam, and he aims for low. Think of it like Fulgore in Killer Instinct, where he aims like a laser low, but then he raises it up like. Gosh, that was super lame. I would say that the beginning, like if you're close to Tyranitar, it would transition into the rest of the move. But if you're far away, it would just be a long-range beam that phase shifts from duel to field if they get hit. What I would say would be, this would be obviously a red armored move, but it would also be punishable on block, similar to the other red armor burst attack being Garchomp. Now, when I think of like certain burst attacks, like especially in this case, I always think of them in my head, like fan burst attacks. So I just thought like, okay, imagine in my head, what would be cool, like cinematic thing? What could like happen? So I'm like, okay, what if he just shout out Stone, like he launches them with Hyper Beam from the beginning, obviously. So he does Stone Edge and sets up just a giant wall behind the opponent as they crash into it, and they're just kind of stuck in that wall. And he just like rushes them down and uses Lash Out. He's like, covered in dark energy, pummeling them over and over again before just finally finishing off with one final giant hyper beam that obliterates the stone structure that he created. Like, I guess you could think of it as like a mountain, which is why I call it Mountain Crushing Tyrant. And I'm like, oh, that's a badass name. I thought of that at 12 a.m. I thought actually, no, I think I thought of it at like 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, yo, I'm a genius. Hire me, Bandai. Yeah, I thought I'd be like, oh, cool. He's like, he's trapping them in a cool way that he just launched him at the wall. And it's just like, bleh! After like beating them senselessly. Definitely an attack that'd be back to like the statistics of all the attacks and all the frame data and stuff. It would definitely be super strong, but it'd also be really cool. I think it'd be super sick of him to have slow. It would be slow, obviously, and you would be able to jump over him before the beam comes up. But I think it's worth it because it'd be badass. Okay, so I just want to talk about like all the references because I mentioned some of them before. But I think a lot of like Pokken, to me, as a huge Pokemon nerd, a lot of the references some moves have to how they apply in the game. So like I guess as an example, something like Giga Drain, you steal HP. Like for Sceptile, he gains the HP he drains. So something like that. Something that like puts the like main game mechanics into Pokken in some way. For the Sandstorm, the reason I thought, okay, it gives red armor and could heal Tyranitar because in those games, rock-type Pokemon gain a special defense boost while in Sandstorm. I thought, like, oh, that'd be a neat mechanic to do like that. For Crunch, not so much the move itself. I guess it piercing on the second hit is kind of a reference to the defense lowering. Gosh, I'm such a nerd. But I think it could use its like attack animation from the main games, similar to how Aegislash's 4X uses his attack animation from the main games. I'm gonna say main games a lot here, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think like, oh, he's like, because he goes like, in the main games. He would just do that twice and it'd be a little, I feel like probably a little faster. It wouldn't be that slow like it is in the games. Fire Fang attack debuff I mentioned. Burns cause lower attack in the main game. I really need to stop doing that. But yeah, they lower attacks in the video games. But yeah, they do lower attacks in the main games, and that would be a reference to why it lowers attacks in Pokken. I think I also mentioned this for Stomping Tantrum, but in the original games, it would do more damage because it whiffed. And I guess it's like a sort of other reference, it not doing like powering up when the opponent's guarding. It's kind of a reference to how it, like if you do an attack into the opponent's protect, Stomping Tantrum would not get powered up. It's sort of like an unintentional thing I came up with too, because I'd be like, okay, what if you just keep spamming Stomping Tantrum and it just keeps powering up because they keep blocking? That would just be stupidly overpowered, especially in Sandstorm. And also for Pursuit, I think I mentioned like half of these. I should really just say these for the end. But them moving back is a reference to them in the original games. If they try to switch out, it just gets powered up. They're not even able to leave they're not even able to switch out in the original games. They just kind of have to stick in and take the hit, and then they can switch out if they don't die to it. But yeah, it gets double powered in the main games. So I think that's why I thought of that. I'm like, oh, I'm a genius. And then lastly, Hyper Beam, Giga Impact. No big surprise, they're punishable on block because recharge time in the main games. So last thing. So basically just the pros and cons of this character. This character can red armor through attacks, to parry them, get through projectiles, just get in to rush the opponent down. Crunch and Stomping Tantrum can make the opponent gas and bait stuff out. But very powerful moves in my opinion. He would be a power character obviously, so he'd just be like, oh, I deal tons of damage from very few hits. And he can lower attacks too, to like survive those hits too. He has great survivability, and he has many moves that can pierce the opponent for trying to just get through his red armor. Slow, as for the cons, he's gonna be pretty slow. Like, he'll have a projectile to get in, but he's still gonna be very slow. And I'm talking about, like, Empoleon, he's kind of slow already, but he used to be so much slower before a certain patch came out that, like, buffed that. So I would imagine he'd just be, like, super slow, and it makes sense. Like, would you imagine him to, like, walk fast? Like, maybe, like, if he was just running at you like that. But he's not going to have a running stance like Garchomp would. And the red armor, while it is a move that he can use, if he takes repeated hits, he's still going to rack up the damage quickly. And I didn't write this down, but in Duel Phase, in red armor, you still take the phase shift points. So even if you red armor through, say, like, a Shandy Beam, if you have enough phase shift points on you, it still can shift, and you just take the damage needlessly. This also means red armor, when in red armor, moves that have like a lot of scaling won't actually scale because they're technically not part of a combo. There's a certain thing you can do with Chandeler's Overheat with Mimikyu that just does like half her health because each hit is usually scaled, but because it's not part of a combo, it just deals 1,000,000 damage. A lot of its moves would be punishable in return for them being strong and be able to be red armored into Sandstorm. He probably wouldn't have any frame 11 move, and then obviously without the Sandstorm, if he's just stuck in the corner, he has a hard time. Like, he has the options. He has moves like Giga Impact or his anti-air to try to get out, but he needs opportunities to use those moves. And if the opponent keeps pressuring him in ways that he can't use those moves, he can't red armor through stuff because Sandstorm's not up. Giga Impact being one of the few moves that he would have that would have red armor without Sandstorm. I imagine if only one other move in that case would probably have red armor. And then last thing, lots of piercing moves go through red armor, and characters who have a lot of piercing moves, like Chandelure for instance, where it has piercing projectiles, which is not good. Like, it has piercing moves that are up close with Overheat, and then piercing projectiles with its fully charged laser and Will-O-Wisp. That'd be very, very bad for Tyranitar to deal with. Anyway, do I have a last slide? No, I do not. Oh, I should have done a please like, comment, subscribe slide. No, but please, if you guys enjoyed the video, I thought this was very like fun video idea that I could do. I thought about more. So if you guys have any suggestions on who you want to see next, definitely comment below on who you like. I've had a few ideas of who I wanted to do next, but I wanted to see if like anyone thought this was like a cool idea for a series I could do. I know there's one for Smash Brothers, and I kind of got inspired by that. A little bit. I thought of it before, and then I kind of thought, okay, I'll kind of center around like this and change stuff up for like Pokkens, but like change up their structure based on how Pokkens mechanics are. With all the most of it's half evolved, like the special moves basically. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you want to see more, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I post a lot of other content if this is your first time seeing this. And I hope to get more of these done. I found it really fun to do this, and yeah, see ya.